The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome back. It's been a long weekend. It's Tuesday. So thrilled to be here with you. We're going to be live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. But before I get any further, I have to do a big shout out to some friends of mine who are in Mrs. Carmody's classroom. This is a 4th grade class that I have had the great pleasure to be working with for the last couple of months, that they have been putting together a play called Women in History, and tonight is their big performance, and I know that they're watching right now, and I wanted to say to all of them, I'm going to get choked up, how proud I am of all of you. You've done such a wonderful job, and I'm thrilled. You did a great dress rehearsal yesterday, and I know that when your families are there tonight, you're going to do a wonderful, wonderful job. So I'll be excited to see you this afternoon and this evening. You will break a leg, and you will have a good time. And I thank you for tuning in to watch us. Just had to take a moment to do that. So we're going to be talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective here. Whether it's you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, and you want some help and suggestions for how to be more efficient and more effective working with a child on the autism spectrum, or whether you yourself are an adult who is on the autism spectrum and are looking for some tips of how to get more done in your life, we're here to support you, and this entire show is meant to be interactive. So Emily is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us. Pick what you would like, but I want to remind you that the only way you can watch us live is by going to www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you will see a lovely desktop, and on the desktop there is a box that says questions we're answering right now. If you put your cursor there right now and start to type, you can type whatever you would like, hit enter, and it magically shows up here on my screen. You can tell me where you're watching from. You can tell me questions that you would like for us to be asking the experts that are going to be joining us later on. Suggest topics that you would like for us to cover here on the show. We're here to be interactive and to support you. I always like to remind everyone that I am not an expert in autism. That is not my job here. I am a former teacher and I am a parent of a young man who is on the autism spectrum. So I have a passion for this subject and I want to help all of you get good, solid information. You know, from time to time, I read a lot of blogs, a lot of parent blogs, and some of them have to do with autism and some of them don't, you know, and I read part of a blog this morning. A parent had written about the time period between when a child is 2 and 4. And she was saying, oh, it's that crazy time in your life when you feel like you can't stand to hear the word why one more time. And I looked at it for a moment, and I was transported back in time to an event right after my son was diagnosed with autism. And I remember being someplace and a woman was complaining, a grandmother, about her 4-year-old granddaughter and how she kept asking the question, why? And I remember her saying to me, how old is your child? And I said, oh, he's 2.5. And she said, oh, well, it's going to start right about now. The whys, they'll why you to death. And of course, it was like a knife in my chest because my son had just been diagnosed with autism. And when a child is diagnosed with autism, there's no guarantee that you will get to those WH questions, the whys. I am extremely fortunate because my son has done so well. But he's had access to all of the right things. And he does ask why on a regular basis. And I'm thrilled to be able to report that. But I don't think he asked the first WH question until he was 4 years old. After that time period that the blogger was describing is so miserable. And I know that the only reason why we got to the why questions, that horrible feeling that I had then of saying to myself, this is not guaranteed. The only reason why we did get to those why questions and the what questions and the who questions were because we got access to the right help at the right time. And part of my job here is to help you to get access to the information that you need at the right time with the right people in the right place. And that's a sacred bond that you and I share together. I know how important it is to you. So write in, tell us what you're looking for. All of our kids are different. All of us are different. So why wouldn't all of our kids be different? And what you need and where you are will determine the questions that you ask. But we welcome your interaction. All right. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense of it. You know, sometimes these are words or phrases that we've heard before in a different context, but once you're dealing with autism, they hold a very specific meaning, and it can be very frustrating and overwhelming if you don't understand what the terms mean. So today we have a new jargon term that we've actually never featured before on the show, and that is AAC, which stands for Augmentative or Alternative Communication. And you may have heard of this before. It's a very frightening thing if you're a parent and your child is not acquiring language, and it's a very frustrating time. Often you will be having a lot of tantrums because if the child can't communicate, they're going to engage in challenging behavior, right? And then the first time somebody sits you down and talks about the idea of augmentative or alternative communication, it's a very frightening moment because it feels as though they're giving up on your child speaking. That isn't the case, by the way. In fact, research will show us statistically that if we give functional communication to children, including with augmentative and alternative devices, that we are more likely to get to speech and we are more likely to get to it quicker. Because if we get that functional communication under control, then all kinds of good things can happen. So let's take a look at what this actually means. Augmentative or alternative communication includes all forms of communication other than oral speech used by individuals with difficulties in the production or comprehension of spoken and written language. For example, the Picture Exchange Communication System, which we know as PECS, and speech-generating devices. iPads are a very big deal now, and there are many different iconic communication systems that you can buy in conjunction with an iPad. There are other devices that you can use as well. I think the big shift at this point is to going to those tablets because they are infinitely cheaper, infinitely lighter, and you can do a lot of cool things with them. And the old augmentative devices were really heavy, they were very expensive, and there was nothing cool or sleek about them. And let's face it, having something cool and sleek that you can send your child out into the world with, that the world goes, oh, I have one of those too, it just makes it that much easier. Let's take a look at what our working definition for AAC is. Ways we gain functional communication with non-vocal individuals. And if you'll notice, I put non-vocal here. As a parent, I never understood the difference between non-verbal and non-vocal. And a lot of times we use the words non-verbal incorrectly because verbal isn't necessarily spoken language. It can be gesturing. So if a child is doing sign language, that counts as verbal. If a child is only signing, they would be non-vocal, not non-verbal. Non-verbal children are people who cannot communicate at all. So we very quickly want to get a non-verbal child to be non-vocal, and then if possible to get them to be vocal. But that functional communication, that's being able to convey your needs and your wants and your desires through some means. If you need to sign, if you want to do a picture exchange, communication, iconic communication, all of those things allow for functional communication. And once we have functional communication, we will see challenging behavior and tantrums diminish, fall away, and sometimes completely, poof, disappear. It's like a magic trick. On a graph, and I'm not big into graphs, let's be honest about that, but it's amazing to me when they begin to work with an individual who has not had functional communication. And one of the first things that they do is work on manding so that they can request something, that they can point to a picture that is a drink of water or a drink of juice, or point to an apple, or point to a little card that has a picture of a toilet on it. Whatever it is, and the child begins to express and get what they want. That's manding. Even if it's not spoken, that's manding. The child gets it. And when they see that, oh, I can point to something, or I can hand you something, and I get what I need, then their tantrums slip away. And on the graph, I call it the magic X. They'll be graphing how many times a child will mand, and we see that all of a sudden that number shoots up, and how much a child will stop tantruming, and they cross each other in the magic X. And that's when life gets good. When your child is able to tell you what they need, there is a piece that comes with that for both the parent and for the child. Really a powerful, powerful time. And again, if that means that in the beginning we have to have some other way of doing it, whether it's the PEC system, another iconic communication system, whether it's an iPad, whether it's the old Dynavox, if there is a way that you can communicate with your child, I know that for parents, that is primary, right? And it leads to so many good things. So there we have it, augmentative or alternative communication. So we get functional communication with everyone. And by the way, that's something we absolutely can do. Get communication, functional communication with all individuals. All right. We always start out with a question of the day for you as well. Today, our question, I can't wait to see what you guys write in for that. For this, we've been talking about devices, and a lot of people are starting to use tablets with their children. So we want to know, what's your favorite app for autism? We've been featuring a couple of different apps here, and we'd love to know what in particular are you really loving. Let us know not only the name of the app, but who manufactures it and what the cost of it is. Because a lot of times it's shocking to me that some of the really good stuff is free. And we love free. Free is fabulous, is it not? I love free. So we'll be checking in on Facebook a little bit later on to see what you guys wrote in for what's your favorite app for autism. All right. And we always have a topic every week. Our topic this week, if you haven't guessed it already, is technology and autism. This is a really exciting area where we're seeing great strides taking place. We've had Mark Serkin on the show before. He was previously with Autism Speaks, and he started a project called Hacking Autism, taking technology and using it to break through autism. A wonderful, wonderful resource. And we hope that Mark is no longer with Autism Speaks, but we hope that we'll still be able to get him on the show from time to time, because in the past he's recommended some really amazing things. But one of the things that he recommended that has been quite an eye-opener for me is Makers. I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity to see Makers magazine or to go to a Makers fair. I know it's on our list of things to do this year, is to get to a Makers fair. Really amazing technology that they're using with kids, their kits that they will use with them. And by the way, this isn't for autism, right? It's for young people who are engineering minded, which sometimes are kids on the autism spectrum, and really educational, really lets the limits go on what a child can achieve. Very, very exciting. So if you have a child who's into building things, has a bit of a lean towards Legos or towards science or both, I would check out the Makers, because that's a pretty exciting thing, and we'll take a look at that a little later on into the week. But some of the different things that we're going to be talking about specifically today, we have our healthy eating tip for you. Today today. We will be talking about challenging behavior a little later on and having some suggestions about how we use technology to help us with challenging behavior. Very exciting. And then, of course, in the second hour today, we will be joined by BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Evelyn Gould for a segment that we call Making Room with Evelyn. It's a really fabulous time when we get to talk with her. And I like to say that she goes to both sides of the aisle, what it's like being the individual with autism and what it's like for everyone else being around the individual with autism, and gives us all permission to feel exactly how we feel. So that'll be a little later on with Evelyn Gould, Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have our healthy eating tip of the week. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live. As the mom of a young man on the autism spectrum, I frequently look to the world and hope for compassion. Well, recently I told my son that he should treat others the way he wants them to treat him. That's when I realized that it's high time that I start walking my talk. This April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to perform an act of compassion. Do something nice for someone else. That's why I've decided to shave my head to show support for a young dad who's fighting brain cancer. How will you show your compassion? Compassion is a tool of change, but only when we take action. How we treat others teaches them how to treat us in return. This April, the autism community has the ability to lead by example by putting compassion in action. This can be a small act or a large one. It can be close to home or towards someone on the other side of the planet. If we all perform an act of compassion, who knows? We might just change the world. Get involved and show us your compassion in action on Facebook.com/AutismLive. And tune in on April 8th to watch me shave my head live on the air. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our healthy eating tip of the week. You know, it's so essential that we be healthy, and that if we have a child or a young individual who is on the autism spectrum, that we make sure that they get healthy too. So we try every week to give one little tip. We've talked a little bit before about artificial food coloring and flavors, and I just wanted to revisit it a little bit today because I know that there are some holidays coming up where there's the opportunity for a great deal of food coloring to be entered into people's baskets, shall we say, and other opportunities for artificial food coloring. And as you're shopping for that, I just want to remind everybody that we all get to make choices, right? And I was in those aisles the other day, and I was looking at all the different colors, and it was fascinating to me because I was remembering that as a kid, when we would get Easter baskets in my house, we would get chocolate bunnies, and there would be some Peeps, and there would be some jelly beans. And I was looking at those kinds of things in 2013 in the aisle and seeing that they were much more colorful than I remember as a kid. And I want to shout out to everybody and say if those are the kinds of things that you're looking at buying right now, that there are alternatives that you can get that might make a difference in your child's behavior. Here's what we know about artificial food colors. There need to be more studies, right? Across the board, there need to be more studies. But I will tell you what sets my flares off, that I go, this may not be right. That there are a lot of food colorings that they are allowing here in the United States that they don't allow in Europe. That they've already outlawed them and said, these colors, we've found these because they're petroleum-based, that we found these colors to not be advantageous enough, that we have enough questions about them, that we're not going to allow them to be put into foods and produced here. So there are some very large candy manufacturers who will make two different versions of a kind of candy. One that they sell in Europe, and the other one that they sell here in the United States. I don't know about you, but as a parent, that makes me angry. If there are people who have a question, and it would seem to me that if you have to retool a factory to be able to make that candy for one place, why wouldn't you be on the safe side and just eliminate that across the board? It's a little disturbing to me as a parent. Also, what is disturbing to me is that it is petroleum-based, these particular food coloring, and usually they are ones that it's not just a color. It'll say, for instance, Red Lake with a number, right? And I have heard from many different parents that their child might be okay with one of them, but not another one. I have one friend that it's the yellow dye that their child has a hard time with. By the way, a neurotypical child. Another mom that I know that her son has a problem, again, a neurotypical child, with Red Lake 40. Another one has a problem with the blue colors. So it isn't necessarily the whole gamut, but if you're seeing challenging behavior in your child, it's something that you have within your control to say, hey, I'm going to eliminate these for a period of time and see if there's a behavior change. And if there is a behavior change, you can make the decision for yourself. Do you want to reintroduce the colors to narrow it down, or do you just want to keep the colors out? I have parent friends who are on both sides of that fence, some who say, I really want to know which ones it is so that I'm not having him or her eliminate foods that they don't need to have eliminated. And others who say, I don't want to play Russian roulette. If colors are bothering this child, then I'm just going to take artificial food colors out. Now, when you're in that aisle in the grocery store, realize that there are all kinds of things that you can get that don't have the artificial food coloring. By the way, they make jelly beans now. You will have to shop a little bit more specific for them. You might have to go to a health food store, but they make fabulous jelly beans that have all the other good stuff in them, but they have all natural colors. In fact, you can even get all natural colors to dye the eggs now. It's much more expensive than the 99-cent stuff that you buy at the typical store. But if your kids are going to be eating the eggs, you might want to consider that. And there are great blogs that are out there that tell you how to do it with homemade stuff. Your eggs will not be the vibrant color. I've done it before. They'll be these like very earth tone fall colored eggs, and if your kid is okay with that, that's all to the good. But otherwise, there are some commercially available egg dyes that are completely natural vegetable colors, but they will run you probably $5 to $8. But if that's something that's important to you, and for a lot of us it is, it's worth it, right? I don't know if you can get the Peeps absolutely with no artificial food coloring or flavors. That's the only one that, but remember that you get to make a choice. It is your choice what you decide to give your child at any given time. And I always like to say, when you're there in the aisle, think to yourself, what's the best choice that I can make today? And sometimes that's not going to be the best choice you can make on another day, but have it be the best choice today. And maybe it's just a question of saying, all right, I'm going to get the Peeps, but I'm going to spend a little bit more and get the jelly beans so that they're in all natural colors. So I've cut what the colors were going to be in half. Let's at least try to limit them, because they're not nutritive. Let's say that. We don't know. We need more studies, but they are not nutritive. And if you'd like to know more about some of the research that has been done on the artificial food colors, I've got it's actually a really good friend of mine who writes a blog that's called Healing Autism and ADHD. And you can find it at www.healingautismand, spelled out A-N-D, ADHD.wordpress.com. And when you go there, she's got a whole blog, a series of blogs. They're great information. You can look about the Fine Gold diet to see what that is. But she's written a great blog, and it's a couple of years old. But it's one of the more popular ones. So it's there on the side column, called "Artificial Food Coloring is Evil." Which you can also just Google that. It's a very funny, intelligent, witty, well-written blog that will make you think differently about the colors that you put in your child. You know, I'm always saying, let's feed our kid the rainbow, but let's make sure that it's natural. So that's our healthy eating tip for the week. As you're buying that stuff, put a mind towards, how can I make the best possible choice today? All right, we'll be back with more after these messages.
Say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. I've got Kristen Selby-Gonzalez here with me today, and the feedback overwhelmingly. Oh, chicken nuggets! It's probably one of the easiest recipes on the planet.
Well, we know all of our kids love chicken nuggets.
Let's talk about corn. GMOs, genetically modified foods, are no bueno for a lot of folks, and we agree. So I've actually called the manufacturers to make sure these are GMO-free product. Really simply, what I did with the corn flakes is just the old-fashioned crush away. That's just the easiest way. Maybe you can crush that a little bit for me.
That's something our kids can help us with,
yeah.
If we're doing cooking with them.
Well, and fine motor improvement.
Absolutely.
Boom. Sensory issues. Boom. A lot of people will over-season. They season for adults. So from the standpoint of just putting it in enough flavor. Now that we got our base, our coating in, I'm going to work on how we coat the chicken. Now, Kristen, was Jax ever allergic to eggs?
He has been.
There's a lot of options with eggs. Don't you know that you can also look at duck eggs,
Really?
quail eggs, and other types of eggs that even though they look the same in the bowl, they're different on the allergy panel. Let's say you find out you're allergic to every egg on the planet. You can use a little bit of water and arrowroot starch. I've got a high-grade stainless steel, non-Teflon frying pan. I'm using high heat oil, getting all ready to go. So we're just really easily going in and coating the chicken.
Now, when I'm flipping these, Lisa, do I flip over and over, or do I just cook one side and then the other?
You know, I prefer to cook one side because what happens is the good coating that you spent all this time crushing for me falls off.
Gotcha.
Bonus.
About how long do you cook on each side?
About 4 minutes on each side. We'll do it. And I think you're almost there. Yeah, you're good.
That
You're
was
golden.
good.
Fantastic. So if you want to take them out. So now that we got the last batch in, let me take you through what these finished babies look like. Like I said, you're going to have some happy families out there wanting to eat this. This is so easy. You saw how quickly we got in and done. Just want to remind everyone, we really want feedback at Autism Live and want to know what you want to see next. So if you've got an idea, a recipe you want us to convert or to talk about a particular topic, we'd love to hear from you. You could do that at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook land. We're all on Facebook. Facebook.com/autismlive. And then again, there's already thousands of recipes waiting for your eyeballs to go cruise over on the TACA website. We'll look forward to seeing you next time on Autism Live. Thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Absolutely love that what's left. Lisa Ackerman is a fabulous, fabulous cook, and I've been trying out these recipes, and they're really fabulous. The mac and no cheese is like the new favorite in my family's house. But I promised that we were going to talk a little bit about challenging behavior, and I want to talk first about challenging behavior in general, and then we'll talk about how we're going to use technology to sort of help us track things. But what I've done here is I've taken a piece of paper and I folded it into 3 columns. And we've talked about this here on the show before because it's so important regardless of what challenging behavior your child is engaging in, right? It could be that your child is getting up out of bed 13 times at night. It could be that your child is hitting their sister. It could be that your child is biting you or their toys or their shirt or themselves, right? Whatever the challenging behavior is, and stop and think for a moment, what is your child doing that you wish they weren't? What is your child doing that's making you go, I don't know how much more of this I can handle? That's what we want to focus on. And we always want to start by taking data. Now, before I lose you, right? Because they talk to me and they'll say, all right, we want to take some data on this. And I go, oh, no. It's not fun. But it can be very rewarding if you do it. So what I've done here is I've taken and I've made 3 columns on this piece of paper. And I've shown you before on the show that at the top of the paper, we're going to write down, we all know our ABCs, right? So I've written at the top, I don't know, you can't even see. I wrote an A, a B, and a C. And these are the ABCs of behavior. So the A stands for antecedent, that it's what happened before the behavior. The B stands for the behavior. The C stands for the consequence. Now, we know that every behavior happens for a reason. There is no random behavior. I know that's the hardest thing as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum, because you think, okay, that's just weird. There's something that happens, you go, it just popped out of nowhere. But the truth of the matter is that all behavior happens for a reason. It's all communication of some sort. And if we are diligent and take a look at behavior, we start to see patterns. And then once we start to see patterns and we've taken some notes on the behavior, we can bring a third eye in, hopefully an experienced and trained third eye. In the best possible case scenario, it would be a board-certified behavior analyst. If that isn't something that is available to you and the challenging behavior is not so challenging that anybody's getting hurt, a third eye that's experienced might be helpful as well. But if you can, a BCBA is going to be ideal because they're the trained experts. We talk about all the time that when your car is breaking down, you don't take it to your neighbor who's a baker and say, will you look at this with me, right? It's too important, and our kids are too important too. So you do want to be working with experts. But you will save time if you do this for yourself. Do the 3-column. This is called a 3-term contingent, the A, the B, and the C. Antecedent, what happened before, the behavior, the consequence. And you start to keep a diary for yourself. So if you feed your child breakfast and half an hour later, your child is throwing a tantrum, what you're going to do first is write down under the B for the behavior what exactly happened during the behavior. You're going to write down child started screaming, threw the fork, laid down on the floor, turned the chair over, whatever it is. They call it the topography of the behavior. You're describing what it looked like. Was there biting? Was there yelling? Were there tears? How long did it last? What time of day did it last? It started at 9:30. Had breakfast at 9 o'clock, started at 9:30. Okay, then in the C column, you're going to write down what happened as a consequence of that behavior. Did you continue having breakfast and you just stepped over the body as it lay there tantruming? Or did you get down on the floor and say, let's get back up on the chair? Did you try to lift them back up onto the chair? Did you lose your temper? What happened? No judgments. What happened? Okay. Then you have to be a detective. The behavior is very fresh in your mind, and you do want to write it while it's fresh in your mind. The consequence, sometimes that's when we go, oh, I don't really want to write that, right? We start judging ourselves. Don't worry about it. We all make mistakes. Write down the consequences. Then you have to be a detective and think back in time and go, okay, what was happening right before? And you really want to think about right before. Did I just say to them, it's time to pick up your toys in the living room? Did you take the food away while they were still eating? And sometimes you go, I have no idea, but write down what happened right before. And if you can't think what happened right before, write down what happened around that time. Well, we were eating breakfast. And then it happened, okay? Because if you continue to do this, and always note the time and the date, right? You will start to see, as you fill this page, patterns. You will start to see, that's interesting. I never noticed it before. But they're tantruming every other day at 9:30. I don't know why that is. And then you think about it. All right, well, what does every other day have in common? And you start to look for things. It isn't always the answer, right? But you start to see things and you start to investigate different things. You may discover, wow, on every other day I've been giving them pancakes with blueberries in them, but they're frozen pancakes with frozen blueberries, which aren't really blueberries. They're blueberry colored things, which does have a blue dye in it, which might account for the behavior. Are there a million other things that it could be? Absolutely. It may be that the demand you're putting on your child is too much for them at that time of the day, right? But you will start to see patterns. Now, one of the things that, and I said we were going to talk about this a little bit with technology. One of the things that you can do, because parents will frequently say to me, I don't always have a piece of paper with me. Or Shannon, I took and I folded it into the 3 columns and then the tantrum happened in the car. And then I didn't know what to do. Well, my husband taught me something a couple of weeks ago that is absolutely fabulous about taking notes on my phone, on my Android phone. And most of us, there are lots of apps that you can download where you can just type messages out so that you almost always have your phone with you and that you can flip back and look at them. Now, if you can't have the 3 columns on the phone, what you can do is just write A, B, and C, and they don't have to be in this order. Usually you want to write the B first, then the C, and you could put the A last. Even though it's the thing that came first, it's the thing we want to think about last. So you can take notes on your phone to be able to see. You're still going to be able to see a pattern. And that's a way that you've always got the technology with you. Another thing that we can do, once we figure out what the function of the tantrums is, then it's possible that something that we can do in some cases is a token economy system. And this is a system where, let's say that your child is tantruming in grocery stores, that always when you go into the grocery store, they're having a tantrum. Well, one of the things that we know is that if we up a reward for behavior, if we make it worthwhile, that behavior will change. It's the same thing for us. It's not just our children on the autism spectrum, but we as adults, if we get enough of a reward for something, we will change our behavior. And so let's say that you're going into the grocery store and your child is tantruming and you know that eventually you've got to get some grocery shopping done. How many times can you leave and say, that's it, we're going home because you tantrumed? And sometimes they tantrum so that you will leave, right? So that they can escape the grocery store. They don't particularly like it. So we need to make the grocery store, going to the grocery store and behaving at the grocery store more reinforcing. And one of the ways that we can do that is by saying, here are the behaviors that I want to see in the store. Obviously, this has to be a child who has enough receptive language to be able to understand what the behavior is that you want. And you don't want to overwhelm. If you've got a 3-year-old, you're going to give one goal in the grocery store. And you're going to pick what the goal is going to be. So if you have a child who fusses at the check stand because they want a piece of candy, the piece of candy is the thing that they want, we're going to make sure that we teach them appropriate ways of asking for the candy and appropriate ways of handling it when you say no. So what we might do to the child is show them, and visual schedules are great because remember, when we're building receptive language, we don't want to assume that they know too much. So we might show them a picture of a grocery store, or we might park in front of the grocery store and say, we're going to go in there, and point to the grocery store. And then we can show them a picture of something that they particularly love, whether it's the candy that they fuss for in the grocery store or it's something else, hopefully without artificial colors. And we point to that and say, do you want one of these, right? If the child doesn't seem to be interested in it, then that's the wrong thing, right? It has to be something reinforcing. But if the child says, yes, this is the thing that they want, or they're pointing to it or going, yeah, whatever it is, then we can say, okay, so we have to get 3 stickers while we're in the store. And you can get stickers for talking nicely. You can get stickers for sitting nicely in the cart, whatever it is, right? We don't want to overload it too many different things. Okay, so we go into the store and we make sure, and on our phone, we get a token economy. And you can download these. They're free. There are some that cost, but there are some that are free. And I've got one here on my phone. I have to go into my applications. And they're great because you can customize them. You can say how many stickers. So if I want it to be that they have to get 2 stickers in order to, mine is called Easy Kid Tokens, but there are lots of them. So I push the Easy Kid token, and my son is old enough and savvy enough that he programs this for himself, that I say to him, if I'm having some behavior, most of the time I don't have to do this anymore, but if we're having some behavior or we've had some behavior in a space before and I really want to work on it, then I'll say to him, okay, we're going into this doctor's appointment and we had a problem when we were there before. So here's what we're going to do. What do you want to work for, right? That's the first thing that we say. But he then programs it himself. So, And you can use the pictures that you have on your phone, and he was being funny. So he took a picture of something that I made. It was a salsa, and it looks not well. And he wrote in here, and you can write in whatever I am working for, and mine says I'm working for puke because my child is in that stage, okay? But he has 6 boxes here, so he's being funny. Usually there's a picture of a computer there. I'm working for computer time. And there are stars here. So I usually have him hold the phone while we're wherever we are, and we'll be doing something, and again, we want to catch them doing something good. So we talk about that all the time on the show. So something will happen, and he'll just be sitting there in the doctor's office, and I'll say, you know, you're sitting there really good. Give yourself a star. Then all he has to do is pick up a star and drag it and put it in one of the little boxes. Now, if your child is really small and doesn't yet use devices, you can help them to do this, but really fun to have them in charge of it, and say, you're doing a great job. Now give yourself another sticker, right? And they know that if they get the 6 stickers, you are going to immediately give them the thing. So for my son, it might be being at the doctor's office and keeping his voice low. And for every 2 minutes that he keeps his voice low, and I've already seen that he can do 2 minutes, I give him a star. For the child that I was talking about at the check stand with a lollipop, maybe I have a picture of a lollipop that they get in the car, not in the store, right? Because I want to work on being able to go through the check stand and not freak out for the lollipop. So I'm going to teach the child that you can ask for the lollipop, and mom's going to say in the car as long as you behave well in the store. And I want to keep giving them the stars. All the token economy does is help us to get through a period of time until they get the reinforcement. And we can make that period of time longer and longer, because eventually, you know, we're going to fade this completely out. But how do you get there? This is how you get there. So the child is not freaking out at the check stand and sees that if they behave well, that maybe they get the lollipop in the car. And then eventually we're going to switch the lollipop to something else, and we're going to make it harder and harder to earn the lollipop, and we'll fade it out altogether, but we'll have taught the child that you can get through the check stand, and it's rewarding to get through the check stand without flipping out. So a great way to use technology, and these kinds of token economies are available, as I said, for free. You can pay money, but this is a free one. And as I said, I don't even know how to change the picture because he does it for me. But I know it's fairly easy, and he always says to me, Mom, it's super duper easy. But a fabulous way, and it's on your phone, so it's something that you already have. Back in the day, can I just tell you, we used to have little laminated stickers. And by the way, what was great about that was that they would always change the stickers to be something that he was really into. So one month they were Spider-Man, and then they were Legos and different things. But you can also change these on most of the programs. If I wanted something different, I know I could put in a star, or I'm trying to see if I can figure it out now. I'm going to give all 6 stars here, and I think it does something magical. Yep. Can you see? So very rewarding. So in this case, he wins the puke. And noises. Oh, joy. That'll drive you crazy after a while. But all different kinds of these. You can shop around, try them out, delete ones that you don't like. And they usually, the free ones, you know how that works. They'll offer an upgrade if it's one that you really like. This has been it's easy kid tokens. This has worked just fine for us since the beginning of time. Okay. So using technology, we can help our kids to overcome challenging behavior. Now, token economies aren't going to work for everything, but they can be really powerful, especially, and I know that sometimes the challenging behavior is the worst when you're away from home, and that's when token economy can be really effective a lot of times. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to look at your answers to the question of the day about what's your favorite app. I'm already seeing some of these and seeing how creative you guys are. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our question of the day today was, what is your favorite app for autism? And when I first started looking at the answers, I thought to myself, well, you know what? We specified what's your favorite app for autism, not what's your favorite app. And it seemed like people were writing things in that I was looking at going, well, now wait a second, because I don't know what that has to do with autism. But some things were pointed out to me. So the first one that was written in, which I had a question about, was Pandora, which of course plays music. It's like a radio station. And but then I realized that for a lot of our kids, being able to listen to music calms them down, and to be able to specify what music and having it change on a regular basis is very good for them. Somebody else wrote in Angry Birds, and again I was like, what is this? Well, we're just talking about our favorite apps. But while I've said before on the show, I do not find Angry Birds to be very exciting. To me, it's more work than play, and I do enjoy playing video games, but not Angry Birds. I know that a lot of people enjoy playing it, and it is something that requires you to think, plan, and reevaluate and try something different. So it's really using EF skills. It's quite good for that. Somebody else wrote in Netflix and YouTube. In fact, a lot of people wrote in Netflix and YouTube. I will say that I personally at home, while I love YouTube, have found that it can be an issue, that there are many things that are out there, and you guys know what I'm talking about, that are not G-rated. So we've had to greatly limit YouTube to when we are present, because some things were being watched that were not okay. Right? So do use caution if your kids are on YouTube. You would be shocked at the things that they can find. You know how they watch a video and then they put up the related videos? Yes, well, sometimes the related videos are really not related. and not at all appropriate for our kids. Okay, another person who says, my granddaughter loves Pandora, iHeartRadio, and of course, YouTube. There we go. Somebody else says, my son loves YouTube and Netflix. And then somebody, that their child is 5 years old, wrote in and said, here are just a few that I like for my 5-year-old son. And she made a huge list. I love this list because there are a lot of them that I've never heard of before. Speech Tutor, My Horse, Zoo Train, My Playhome, Baby DJ, PBS Kids, we're all familiar with that one, right? Logic by Pop App Factory / Visualize. I can't wait to look at that one. PEX Phase 3, Baby Playface, which I think I know what that is, and it's a very fun app. First Words Deluxe, fabulous app. Baby Sign and Learn. Relax MPHD, T Toy Factory, and Counting Caterpillar. And she wrote it and said the most expensive app on the list is $9.99. Most are 99 cents or free. So you got to love that. That is on the Facebook page for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders if you want to go and look there. Another person said Dr. Seuss and YouTube. Here's one, The Social Express, which I know to be a very good app. And somebody wrote in Netflix and Disney Live. All these great apps. I will tell you that my favorite, well, there's a couple of apps that I really particularly love right now, but my favorite one for my son right now is something called Splash Math. And it comes in different grades. So this year we got Splash Math for 4th grade, and we had and you can get it for free, and we had the free app and played it, and I paid for the full app, which I believe was $10. I think it was $9.99. And I was happy to spend the $10 because my son was so thrilled to be playing the math games that, and the free version only allowed you to play like 8 questions a day. And he was saying, I want to do more. I want to do more math. It's a no-brainer, right? I'm so willing to pay $10. And what that game is, you get to choose from the topics, the subtopics, but it's all 4th grade math standards. So you can choose doing multiplication, you can choose doing division, you can do fractions, you can do adding, subtracting, a whole bunch of other things too that are number related, and I think there's even word problems on it. So he can pick which category he wants to do them from, and it'll give him a series of questions. And it's great because it's all on the iPad, so he doesn't have to write numbers, which is my son's least favorite thing to do, right? And I can get him to do that more advanced math that Temple Grandin was talking to me about by taking away the handwriting task. So what they do is they have little boxes, and he can drag numbers in to say what the number is. So if he's doing addition, it requires him, not multiple choice, right? Because I don't want to be doing, sometimes it's multiple choice, but most of the time it isn't. He has to drag the little numbers in to say what the numbers are. So it allows him to do the problem without having to do the writing portion of it, which we still work on the writing, but it lets him fly. And then if he gets it right, this little flying saucer comes tumbling in, and this kid voice says something like, wahoo, or amazing, or great job. And when you know that it's really reinforcing, I was playing this game with him over the holidays, and we were at somebody else's house, and I turned the sound off, or I turned it down, just the volume on the iPad. And he did 2 questions, and he said, Mom, it's not telling me I did a great job. I like it when it tells me I did a great job. I want to be able to hear that. So I know that those sounds are really reinforcing for him. And once he gets a certain number of questions right, he gets a little token, and he gets to trade those tokens in for games. So, and you can go and look at the games page, and they're all locked. You have to earn the tokens, and once you get tokens, then you get to buy the game to be able to play it. And there's silly little games that last like 2 minutes, and then you can go back to doing the math. But he likes them, and he likes the fact that he earns them. So it makes him want to do his math. And then, this is the best part, I get a weekly sheet that tells me the progress, how much he did on his own, what areas he's working on, what areas he's focusing on. It's really very clever. So that's Splash Math, and I think it's by Study Lab that does that. And again, free, and I think for a lot of kids, the free one would be enough because you're doing 8 questions questions. But if you have a child who loves math, or if you have a child who finds what they've done really reinforcing and wants to do more math, it's worth the $10. Believe me, very, very exciting. So we're going to continue to look at what you guys write in for apps. It's honestly kind of amazing. We just got an iPad at Christmas time, and I hadn't spent a great deal of time. I get apps on my phone, and there are many things that we use, that we interact with, and it's kind of amazing, all the different things. By the way, we just talked about the token economy, and during the break I went in, changed the picture. I can use any of the pictures on my phone, and it says I'm working for fighting zombies, so I changed it, and I changed it to 3 tokens, and I also changed it to ladybugs, and I changed the music that it plays when you get them all right. And very easy. And if I can do it, believe me, without my son even here to talk me through it, then you know it's pretty easy. But some of the different apps that I have on my phone that my son has downloaded that he quite enjoys, we have Angry Birds, of course. We have books, though, because if we get stuck someplace, so there are a couple of books that we have on there, because you can download free books, and you can download those interactive free books that Ashley was talking about last week and good stuff. We have battle multiplication, so that we can battle each other. You play on opposite sides of the phone, which is really wonderful. We have draw free, which my son loves to do if he's bored and I'm waiting in line for something. He can be drawing a picture of something. We love the logo quizzes, and that's a great thing to get him watching and seeing what things are and figuring out what the symbols mean. Very good. I'm looking to see what else. We have a Mancala game on here that we play together. Things like Instagram, so that they can take pictures. We have Pandora on here. Where's My Water is a great EF game. We have another multiplication table one. Plumber. These are all great games where they have to think things through. Very, very fun. But those are all games. And there are things that, I was mentioning some of the educational ones, like the multiplication ones. Looking to see what else. If you're working on words and spelling, Ruzzle, they can compete with you on Ruzzle, which is a very fun thing. Apps, they're the coolest. We're going to be talking more about that all this week as we talk about technology and autism. So we love your input, because you could look forever and still not find all the things that are great, right? So if we share the good ones, then we're doing great. But the biggest one for me right now, Splash Math. Absolutely wins hands down. All right. We are going to take a break and come back in just a few minutes. Stick with us. Have you ever noticed that when you do something nice for someone else, you feel great afterwards? It's because in that moment you know you've shown kindness and compassion in a world that sometimes can seem chaotic and isolating. Well, this April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to put compassion in action. We all expect others to show compassion to our kids, to us, and to our families. What better way than to show compassion ourselves? That's why I'm asking everyone to do something nice for someone else. If we all take just one act of compassion, who knows? Maybe we can change the world. So watch Autism Live to find out how you can participate in our Compassion in Action campaign. And then make sure you tune in on April 8th, when I will shave my head 5 for a young dad with cancer. That's my way of taking action and compassion. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Feel the love and the breeze. Welcome back to Autism Live. It's that time of the day when we show you the A Word. This is the amazing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And he is one of those fortunate children that is having early intensive behavioral intervention begin in his home. We are picking it up at this point in the series where he has been having therapy for a little under a year. And there's been a great deal of progress in this first year, really amazing amount of progress. But there's more to be done. And one of the toughest parts about autism is understanding what a marathon this is. You begin to see progress and you think, okay, job done, except that there's a lot more to do. And sometimes that can be very frustrating for the child. It can be very frustrating for the parents. So let's take a look and see what Jack Riley is doing this week. This is the A word.
Put your shirt on.
Oh, really? Whoa, whoa.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Oh.
So I got an email from Miriam saying...
Jessica received an email from the other therapist that Jack Riley has been attempting to bite them. So she's checking in with Mike and Cheryl to see what's going on.
Has he tried to bite you guys?
He bit me.
He got her.
On Tuesday morning. He bit me good.
Was it just out of...
Oh, it was aggression.
Was there a consequence?
I snapped at him and he cried.
Kind of unexpected, too.
Yeah.
And he doesn't bite out of aggression.
Yeah.
He never did that before.
It's this sort of this week. No new.
Yeah, the girls have been telling me, like, just about every session he's
Yeah, Miriam, we tried to bite her hand because he didn't want to walk.
Yeah.
And so we took him out again yesterday. And it didn't start out well, but I think it ended up okay. Which his reward was if he would walk to the count of 20, he could jump with mommy and daddy. We would have him jump. And that seemed to be enough of a reward for him to try to keep going without going limp or trying to bite.
5 jumps and then take 20 steps.
So would it be okay if we went for a walk about, like, 9:30?
No.
Okay, 9:45.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, what's your name? And how old are you?
2.
When's your birthday? Oh, cool. That's soon. Are you worried about the biting?
A little bit. Because I know a lot of our kids do it to get a reaction or to do it just, out of protest that they don't want to do something. I just don't want it to become an issue and become a behavior where he'll generalize it to everybody else, his family, therapists. So far, it doesn't sound like it's been happening a lot. I just wanted to do it today just to see what the antecedent is and why he's doing it. Is it because he wants an extra minute of play, or he doesn't want to, transition from outside inside yet? Just to see what's actually going on. No, stop. Stay with mommy, though. Nope. Hold my hand. Stay with mommy first.
Hold my hand.
No. Settle, dude.
You want to go to count to 20? Should we count to 20? And then you get Little Mermaid, or do you want to play? Okay, count to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20! Yay! Come here, we'll walk. Yay! Let's walk. Stand up. Oops. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
What do you want?
No.
Hello, tantrum.
Stand up.
What do you want? Tell me. I want. Okay, then let's walk for 20 steps
20
and then
steps,
you can
and then
get
you can
mermaid.
have her.
Okay, let's
Ready?
go.
Usually I just let him go free because he's been in therapy all day.
Right.
So that's part of he expects to be able to just run.
I would suggest just to get his compliance under control first. You give him an instruction, he complies, you give him his little freedom. Because I know he wants to run around. Give him words to use, like, give me 1 more minute, or, I want more grass.
Yeah. Jack.
What's calling you?
Come here. Come here.
Oh, boy! Yay! There you go!
Good job, buddy.
Yay!
Now what do you want? You want pancakes?
Mermaid.
Mermaid!
Mermaid. Hey, Jack, here's the mermaid.
She's gonna tickle you. She's gonna kiss you. Tickle.
Tickle, tickle, tickle.
I don't want him to feel that every time he's out there, he has to have a fight with you guys.
And quite frankly, I had no idea how to combat it the last couple of days. I thought, okay, I'll just pick him up and take him in because I had no idea what to do. And today he had a good time. I think he got out some energy.
Well, if you guys can establish or be consistent about the rules outside, like, when I ask you to come here, you gotta come here.
I mean, if he's just not behaving, if he's not doing anything we ask, is it okay to pick him up and say, okay, we're going in? I don't know what to do. I mean, I get so frustrated. I think, well, the only option I have is, we're going in, and he won't go in with me, so I pick him up. I can't do when he's 10, of course. Now it's like his main weapon is to just lay down.
My suggestion would be ask him to come here, but just, give him hugs or say what's up, and then have him run again. Right. So that when you finally do give him the instruction, he's not, too upset about it.
Yeah. Because
sometimes when you ask him to come here, he'll put up a fight because he knows that means I gotta go now.
So if every now and then he comes here and just
gives you a hug, gives you a kiss,
gets to be free, then it won't be such a bad association.
Yes.
It was a nice experience. And, the last couple times have been seriously to where I didn't even want to take him outside again. Just so traumatic.
Little mermaid.
You want the Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaid?
There you go. Oh, here you go.
Little Mermaid.
Here you go. Come sit down.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, go show Suzanne Little Mermaid.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Shirt. Yeah, you are wearing a shirt. I'll be right back. You'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, that's too fun.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That is the A Word, an amazing, amazing series that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And you can watch from the beginning. They've got over 2 years of episodes logged now on their YouTube channel. And I encourage you to watch so that you really get to see the arc. And we're going to talk about this for a second, but I want to welcome to the show. It's time for Making Room with Evelyn. Evelyn Gould, BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst, is joining us right now. Such a thrill to have you here this morning. And I love your laugh. It's a thrill to have you here this morning. I love watching the A Word because I always say it's like how when you read a really good book and the first time you read it you have all the anxiety and the angst and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. And then once you've read it once, you can go back and read it a second time and you get to really enjoy knowing that everything's going to be okay. This is the A Word for me because all of our kids are different, but I lived this and I couldn't enjoy the progress that my child was making because I didn't know where we were going to get. I had all the emotion going on. So now I can watch it with Jack Riley and remember what that felt like and remember those moments, but I can remember them without the fear. And it's so lovely because I know the end of the story, which makes it infinitely easier for me. But I can't imagine, and I hate, we are going to have this family with us sometime next week. We're working out which day they can be here. And I always talk about the dad because I love this dad. He reminds me so much of me. He gets so frustrated and he gets emotional and angry about what's happening, and he's honest about it. He says how he's feeling about it. And he, in this episode, after having a couple of months where he could walk outside with his child, because in the beginning they couldn't. Then they had the progress. They could walk outside with the child. And now, all of a sudden, he's biting and running away. And dad's completely emotionally despondent about it. He says, I'm to the point where I don't even want to take him outside. And in the last episode, he talked about, here I had hope. My child was making progress and I thought he was going to be on the football team and go on dates. And now we've had a new behavior, a new challenging behavior, and he feels as though it's all lost. I can relate to that, but I know the end of the story. So I am going to let you talk. But in any case, because it kind of ties in with what we're going to talk about today, about ACT and what ACT can do for us as parents to help us in these moments, right? So explain, if somebody is new, what ACT is.
Well, I think the best way to think about ACT is it's acceptance and commitment therapy, and it's basically a bunch of techniques behaviorally based that really helps us develop flexibility, psychological flexibility. So we talk on the show about developing our kids' flexibility in their behavior and their ability to be able to behave in an effective way in different circumstances, and be able to deal with changes in their environment and react appropriately or in a way that's helpful. And it's basically trying to do the same thing with the way that we think.
Right.
Because quite often when we have all these emotions come up and we have like a lot of difficult thoughts coming into our heads about maybe, oh, I'm a failure, or I can't do it, it's too hard, like all these types of things that come up, we create barriers for ourselves, and then we're not able to behave in the most effective way to move us towards what really matters. Like, we're not able to do what really matters in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's where ACT steps in. It tries to give you tools to be able to behave more flexibly and in a helpful way.
Yeah. And I find it, I don't know if irony is the right word, but parents that are out there watching, you know that we're hearing more and more people are getting the information that there is help for our kids, that we know what we can do to help our kids to get real progress. But we will often say, but what about the help for the parents? What about helping us to figure out and make peace with everything that we have to do and really be very practical about it? I've said before on the show about Art Wilkie, who is just the nicest person on the face of the earth. When my child was having tantrums, and he was called in to help me to figure out what to do when he was having the tantrums, because my child would just flail. He would become a whirling dervish, and I was worried for my safety and his safety and everybody else's safety. And Art Wilkie was showing me something to do, and I just yelled at him and said, Art, where is my purse in this scenario? Like, you know, we get frustrated and we want to know the real life solution, and we have to be able to maintain it. We get really, really frustrated. Well, it seems like to me that thing that we've been asking for forever, where's the help for the parents, has arrived. It has arrived. ACT is a way to help us. So when you're sitting there and saying, well, how am I supposed to do that? The team says to you, they were just saying to this parent, let's try to keep the consistency of the consequences. And the therapist looks at the dad, and the dad's like, yeah, right. How about you do that in the grocery store, right? And here's the young therapist who's sitting there, and she knows it's hard. She knows that he's struggling with it, but she also knows it's what's going to work.
Yeah, it's about doing what works, not what's easy.
Right.
And easy makes it sound like that's the pleasant thing to do, but easy is simply reacting to how you're feeling. And in an ACT sense, it's easy to just want to escape how you're feeling and thinking, and focus in on like the kind of crisis that you're feeling, rather than doing what works, which is, you know, doing what needs to be done in order to, in the long term, get where you're trying to get to.
Right. And here's the irony. It's the same thing we're doing with our kids.
Absolutely.
Because Jack Riley wanted to escape. He wanted to go be on the grass. And you know, the way he was getting the job done was the easy way. I'll bite you. And then I get to grasp while you're going, ow. And we're trying to teach him there is a better way that will make your life richer. You'll get a bigger paycheck for it. It's going to be a little harder in the beginning. And we as parents have to do the same thing.
Yeah, and you don't get all the collateral damage that goes along with the easy way. It gets you there faster. In the short term, it gets you there faster, but there's a lot of bad stuff that goes along with that.
Yes. And whereas the other stuff, once you get really good at it, will be just as quick, if not quicker, and the paycheck is much bigger. Well, we as parents have to take on that same attitude, but it's hard. We want to escape.
It's really hard, and you are going, I think a lot of the time it's about doing things that are going against your urges, for want of a better word, because we all don't like feeling difficult things, or we don't want to let those things in, and we don't like those thoughts, and we don't want to, we kind of struggle against them. So then to have this idea that we should stop struggling with them and make room for these things and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard, because it's not your go-to thing to do. It's like, you know, your brain is wired to problem solve and to save you and to protect you, and so it does its thing, automatically starts down the road of trying to do its job, and we're trying to teach ourselves how to do something different. It's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to admit when you're not good at something and not good at it in that moment, that you're not proficient at something, and especially when it's around your child.
Absolutely.
Somebody else, and a lot of times they're very young therapists that we see in this circumstance, that there's the very young therapist who at this moment in time did not yet have children, and she's explaining to the dad, here's what you have to do. And as a parent, there's a part of it that goes, what if she's right? Who does that make me? Mm-hmm. If this young, the first person that came to our house that really made a difference in a moment was Ryan Bergstrom. And he, at that moment in time, he was probably 22, but he looked like he was 17. Mm-hmm. And here I was in my 40s and had extensive experience with children, and he was standing in my living room saying, very nicely, we're going to do this in a different way. And it felt horrible in the moment. I felt embarrassed that I didn't know what to do for my child. I felt hopeful that this kid might be right, but terrified that he was going to be right, because then it was going to be something that I could have learned someplace else. Mm-hmm. I mean, the stuff we put on ourselves, to think that I could have possibly read every book before my child was born to know everything that there was to know. I would never expect that of anyone else, only of myself.
But this stuff shows up, and you're saying you wouldn't expect that of anyone else, but it's likely that anyone else would also have those things show up. And that's the reality. Like, we're all human, and we all have that annoying stuff show up for us, and it gets in our way. And hopefully with, say, doing some of the things that act, or developing that flexibility helps us. It doesn't stop that stuff from showing up, because it's going to show up, because especially around your kid or other stuff that really matters to you, that is how you know that it really matters, because that stuff will show up. So it doesn't make that stuff go away, but it will help you not let it get in your way of where you're trying to go, and you're trying to help your kid and have the best life that they can have, and to be the person that you want to be, the parent that you want to be. And that's what's really important. It's not making that stuff go away, it's stopping it from getting in your way of where you need to be going.
But part of the acceptance, in that acceptance commitment then, is accepting that we are not always going to be brilliant at everything that we do. And that we care more about learning and getting better at it than caring about what we look like while we're learning. That's a toughie.
Just opening up and expanding around all that stuff. Making room for other things. One of the things that sometimes people get confused about with acceptance is this: they think that if they accept, it means almost focusing in more on the feeling. So if you accept a difficult feeling, then it's like, well, then that's all there is going to be. But it doesn't actually really work like that. The irony is that usually when we make room, or imagine that we're making room for those things, that they kind of dissipate. Or they get less. They don't have as much control over our behavior in that moment. Does that make sense?
It does make sense to me. My expression that I always use is, you're right on schedule. And sometimes, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying, I'm having a really hard time with this particular thing. And I said, of course you are. You're right on schedule. Anybody would have a hard time with that. That's reasonable. If I were doing that, you would say to me, and I said, no, you're right on schedule. And they went, you're right. And I watched them physically change, because they were like, oh, right, no, that is acceptable. How I'm feeling is exactly how I should be feeling. Exactly. It's not easy, but I'm on schedule.
Everyone is. I always remember, like, everybody's behaving as they should. Like, whether it's really helpful in the long term or not, you're always behaving how you should, given the circumstances that you're in, and given your history, and given where you are.
But the power is that we do have control over changing some of the circumstances.
We don't have control over physiological stuff that's happening in our body, so we don't really have a lot of control. Some people can learn that. I've seen amazing programs of people altering their heartbeat and all sorts of stuff. Wow. I think generally they don't really have a lot of control. We know in the training that happened at CARD, they were doing an exercise of, if I told you that you're standing above all these sharks, and I'm doing the lie detector, and if you can keep this steady, then we won't open the trap door. But if it goes, like, it starts to move, then you're going to fall into the sharks. And it's going to be pretty impossible to keep that that little dial going in a straight line. Like we don't have a lot of control over how our body responds emotionally.
Right.
So it kind of is a waste of our energy fighting against ourselves, and we don't really have a lot of control over what rubbish our brains turns out, like how our brain works. Like our brain is designed to protect us and problem solve and do all these things, so it's just like a constant stream of like yada 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 yada, and self-evaluation and criticism and like judgmental kind of stuff, whether that's about other people or ourselves. That's just what happens.
I call that the yabba yabba. It's funny you said yada yada. I call it the yabba yabba. That little voice that says things to you, like you do something and the little voice goes, that wasn't very smart, right? The yabba yabba voice.
He thinks it nada, yes, the yada yada yada. I call it my radio, crazy FM radio. But
crazy FM radio. I like it.
So we don't have a lot of control over that. So fighting against it is pretty fruitless. It's a waste of your energy, essentially. It's a waste of your energy. You get so caught up in that, and then you start behaving in order to try and avoid it or diminish that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's not effective because you can't control. In the long run, you can't stop that stuff.
So we don't start talking to ourselves and tell the yabba yabba or the FM crazy radio to shut up.
Or you do, or so if you're in the supermarket and your kid's having a tantrum and you start being like, oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed. What are these people thinking? They're thinking I'm such a crappy parent. Why is he doing this to me? Why would he torment?
Not now. Right.
And so
not now, not in this moment.
Maybe do something to make that go away. You're going to do something to stop your child having the tantrum right now. So that isn't, but you may then do something that's not necessarily the best in the long term for managing your child's behaviour. You may inadvertently teach them the wrong thing because you're too busy trying to get away from how uncomfortable you feel.
So what should we be doing then when that moment's happening?
So I think it's extremely difficult. You need to practice all this stuff not in the supermarket.
So it's like a rehearsal, a fire drill for the actual
event. You're going to practice, like, first of all, the acceptance part, like realizing you can't stop all this stuff. But you do have control over how you react to what's outside of your brain.
So that's the commitment part, that we make a commitment to looking at the rest of that and picking and choosing what we want.
Diffusing. We call it diffusion, and it's basically trying to let go of your grip on your thoughts and your feelings. And just acknowledging that they are just thoughts. They're not facts or truth per se. I don't know how else to describe it, but perhaps, like, you know, if you say a word over and over and over and over and over again, it kind of just loses its meaning and just turns into a sound. That it's just a sound. Words are just sounds, essentially. They're not contingencies in the environment. They're not real things. Does that make sense?
It does.
So we're trying to loosen our grip on them as maybe they're true, maybe they're not true. They're just thoughts.
I'm sure you've heard, I have a friend who says that fear stands for false evidence appearing real, which is always interesting to me. I go, interesting. Because honestly, when we look at when we have fears and we look at what's happening in the actual moment, usually there's nothing happening in the moment that you're feeling the fear.
You've basically attached yourself to something in the future. Or, you know, you're attaching a bunch of fear responses to thoughts.
And the truth is that the experiences in my life, when I've been in a situation that really should cause fear, I didn't feel the fear then because I was too busy reacting and doing action. So in the moment when fear, you would think, would be appropriate, it didn't happen then. It happens either before when something isn't happening or afterwards, that then, you know, people have the little meltdown and go, oh, I can't believe that happened.
See that if your fear is related to something that's in your head and it's like a future event or a thought, how difficult it is then to actually behave. You can't really do anything about it. When you're reacting fearfully in the now, and like you say, something is actually happening, you're able to respond to what's actually happening. You can actually do something, but when it's in your head, it's just goes on and on. There's nothing you can do.
Absolutely. It's very interesting that it functions that way, fear. We just, like 3 years ago on the 4th of July, we were watching a fireworks show, and there was a tragic accident 20 feet away from us that everybody was lined up along a street, and 2 cars crashed and came into the crowd. Wow. And there was a fatality. And literally, we were 20 feet away. I mean, the car was coming towards us. And I remember afterwards thinking that in the moment that all that was happening and all the things that I would flash back to afterwards, I had no fear. And the whole group of people, I mean, there was probably hundreds and hundreds of people, and to watch how everybody reacted, there was so much action that took place, and a car was lifted, and people were making phone calls, people were taking action, and in the moment, everybody was in that. And then, of course, in the weeks after is when, for the entire city, they had therapy for people to deal with what they had seen, because people had reactions afterwards. But in the moment, and I even remembered myself feeling very capable in the moment. What needs to be done right now? I need to make sure my child is safe. And then, you know, one of us needs to go and help. Who's the best person to go and help? My husband can lift more than I'll stay with the child. He's going to lift the car with the other men, you know, and it was just do. Afterwards, a whole different thing.
Right.
So amazing to me. Yeah. And this applies even in these moments with the dad, that now that we were talking about with the A word, he has gone outside and had some difficult moments outside, and now he's having the emotion of what happened before taking his child outside. I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
But if we accept that how we're feeling and say, and even label it, say, I'm feeling trepidation.
I think it's really helpful to just acknowledge what's going on. And you know, I find it helpful to be like, oh, there's that story again about you're not good enough, or you can't do this, or whatever the story. We all have our stories.
Right.
I'm not a good parent, or I don't know what I'm doing, or this is never going to work, or whatever your stories are. Just acknowledging that is happening, and acknowledging that the feelings and expanding around them. I find it very helpful to, I use breathing a lot, like, so I will take a deep breath and make room for whatever I'm feeling, and then trying really hard to realize that that's not the only thing that's happening right now.
So we do talk to ourselves a little bit and say, that may have happened once, but that hasn't happened every time. Nothing bad is happening right now.
Yeah, I try not to get into an argument with myself over what's right and what's wrong and whether it's true or not true.
Okay.
I try to just acknowledge that it's there.
Okay.
And then what is really happening? And we've talked about this before, Shannon, identifying the value, because if you are having those reactions and thoughts, it's because something really matters.
Right.
And then trying to figure out in that moment, what am I afraid of losing here, or what's really important, and my child's future is important, or whatever I want to do the best thing for my child, whatever the value is there. And then that helps me personally make a decision about what to do, because then I'm able to make the painful decision of, I'm going to ignore these people, who cares? Like, I'm going to ignore the fact that these people are staring, and I'm going to focus on what is really happening.
Right.
And like, behaving like you talked about the people in the car crash situation, I'm going to do that and get away from all the yada, 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 yada smog.
Well, that actually makes a great deal of sense, because in the moment when you identify and say, okay, because as you've said before, there's warring things going on. But when you take a moment, and a moment in the grocery store where you're like, oh no, they're going to think I'm a bad parent, when you identify what's the most important, you know, moral compass thing here for me being a good parent, it makes that other one shrivel. It really does, so that you think to yourself, all right, well, then here's the course of action, and it seems infinitely easier.
And making room for the possibilities, like, that's, yes, maybe there will be people there who think you're a bad parent, but you'll have acted on your value of being a good parent.
Exactly. And so you're 100% clearer that that's the right action to take.
And it's going to be painful, because it's always painful when you're moving to your values.
Yes.
Like that phrase, where there's life, there's pain. That's just the reality of it. And if it's
where there's life, there's pain. Oh, pain. I thought you said pain.
There's also pain.
I was like, well, that's true, and especially for those of us who where there's life, there's pain.
You know, there's pain. But so anyway, if it hurts, it's meaningful. Like,
All right. I've digressed now. I've taken us out. So great time for a break. Where there's life, there's pain. Okay. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more about the training that happened here and what the hope for the trickle down for that is. All right, so stick with us more with BCBA Evelyn Gould after these messages.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions. Things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So, the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. Alright, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. I got this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up, like so, and I'm going to wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm going to make it a little bit tighter, and I'm going to roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll. And what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are in the middle of making room with Evelyn Gould, BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, is with us. And we're talking about ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, and how parents can be using it to help with the emotional side of things so that we get more done. And during the break, we talked a little bit about we were talking about the rehearsal part of this, that we can't expect ourselves to be able to do these techniques in the moment the first time out the gate.
No, we would never expect our kids to, us to sit there and go, okay, whenever you encounter a spider, even though you're terribly afraid, it's blah, 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 and then give them a rule about how to behave and then plonk a spider on their knee and expect them to implement what we just told them.
Right.
But for some reason, we often expect that of ourselves. We think if we know something or we know what we're supposed to do, that we'll actually do it. This is why it's really important to do role play and practice, and we'd want to practice. You want to practice using these techniques in a non-threatening environment first, and then gradually build up to being able to use them in those moments, and forgiving yourself when you don't necessarily do it right in the really intense moments.
Okay, so it's IEP season, so let's talk a little bit about how we might rehearse for an IEP, how we would role play to prepare ourselves to be able to handle the emotional toll, that's the word that I was looking for, the emotional toll of what an IEP can be if we allow it to be.
Well, I think something that can be very helpful is role playing. So for example, you might put yourself, you might have your partner and help you, and so you might be like, okay, I'm going to be me and you're going to be my mind.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in the IEP and you're going to start saying all the things that might show up for me and just start bombarding me, and then I'm going to try and keep doing what I need to do despite you, like, yada yada yada, you're a crappy parent, you don't know what you're talking about, they are never going to listen to you, whatever the things that are showing up, I hate them and they never listen to me, da, 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 da. I can't do it, it's too hard, my child's never going to get what they need, like just this constant stream of,
they don't want to spend money on my kid.
And just this constant stream of stuff, and then swap with your partner and have them sit there and have this voice and just think about how the experience of that, and how it can, whether it is actually preventing you from doing what needs to be done, or is it just this? You know what also strikes me about that is that if you do that, then your partner also gets to see some of what you're going through. Absolutely. So that's the idea, is that it's a bit of perspective taking, so you get to experience each other's minds.
Wow.
And I think it's then also useful to put one of you in the teacher's role, or one of you in the speech therapist role, whatever, and just try to imagine, because we're all human and likely we all have the same stuff showing up in maybe in the content is different, but it's the same idea. So somebody who's being defensive towards you, it's likely that they're also reacting because they're maybe doing what is their problem, why are they so difficult, and they're trying to push it all on you, and it's deflecting it onto you as a parent, but it's because they are also having yada 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 going on, and they can't hear what you're saying. So it's useful to kind of switch around the roles, because when you get into the actual situation, then you will feel it's kind of like you've been through it already, and you've also had the chance to be perspective taking, kind of seeing what it's like for each person who has, because every single person in that room has a yada 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 going on,
which I think we forget a lot of times. I know this last week has been a real education for me about how insulated I have become with the autism, how I'm having my experience because I have a child with autism, and how much other stuff I miss when I'm on that page. And some of the different things that Dr. Grandpichet last week had said, that jealousy stems from the fear that we are not worthy enough to have. I had never heard that before. And that has been going around my head going, wow, that's pretty amazing, because it gives you a whole different look at things. And then Jonathan Tarbox was with us last week and said that one of the most important things in an IEP was to take the perspective, because there's probably some common ground you can find. And also realizing that they have that tape going in their head is amazing to me. That all three of you are saying this in a different way makes great sense to me.
If you can get multiple people to help you, then you can really get a sense of what it's like. Just think how you may have, say you have 5 people in that room, and you have 5 people yada 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 yada. That's like the noise, and how distracting, how that is completely distracting away from what the goal is, and that's
which is helping the child.
And how difficult it is for people to not just behave and listen to that voice that's going on. So the thing is, you can't do anything about what other people, how they behave, or how they interact with their thoughts and feelings, but you can then be aware of that and then choose how you
Right.
You interact with your thoughts.
Right. Well, we don't have to be as defensive. If I sit there in the moment just thinking about it and thinking, okay, I know that part of the thing going on with that person is they want to appear to be doing their job well, then I don't have to be as defensive about the way in which they're posturing.
And then you don't have to bring your own stuff, and you can possibly be more flexible and you're more able to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get past this barrier or whatever that's showing up.
Well, and if I know that that person wants to look like they're doing a good job, is there a way that I can achieve my goal while helping them to look like that? So we just get done what we wanted to get done without the argument, without me getting defensive and putting up, as you said, one more barrier. Amazing. So potentially just doing it with your partner or getting a bunch of friends together and saying, I need you to do this for me. I have lots of actor friends who would love this. Oh, you're playing the role of this person. You're playing, it's like a murder mystery dinner, but it's an IEP meeting dinner.
And you can have fun with it. You can say, I need you to try really, really, really hard to stop me from moving towards this person. So if you have your partner be whoever it is at the school, who's the teacher, for example, and you are you, and you have this person who's going to try really hard with their words to stop you moving towards that teacher.
And when you say moving towards them, you don't mean actually physically moving towards them.
Well, you could do it physically, but I mean kind of metaphorically, like turning towards and opening up to try and work with them to get what you need for your child. Because you can't get what you need for your child if you're putting a wall up and
you're too far away. Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
So you can have your partner like try really, really hard with their words, being your mind to try and stop you from achieving what you're trying to achieve.
So they're becoming an obstacle to you doing the thing.
And then you can basically see, like, I can have all this stuff, this terrible, my mind can say all this terrible stuff, and I can still do my best for my kid.
Right.
And I can still try to work with this person to get what I need.
Right. Absolutely. Because I think so many times it's easy for things to seem black and white when really there's nothing but shades of gray. You know, I think sometimes we want to cast people as the villain. When in fact, if they were really a villain, they wouldn't be working in a school. A villain would, and if it was really about money for them, they would go and work in a bank or someplace where there's real money, right? There's no money to be made in a school. There's no huge personal achievement job-wise that, you know, it's not like they're going to get put on the news job-wise. Usually people are in schools because there's an element of selflessness in them, at least from my experience. People who who say, I want to work in education are usually really well-meaning people. I'm sure that, you know, that there is always an exception to a rule, but usually they're there because they like the idea of educating all kids, not just some of them. But that's tough to remember when you're toe-to-toe and you feel like your child's education is at stake. But I can see where it would help to have all those people to talk about that, rehearsing it. Now, if you don't have anybody to rehearse with...
you can still kind of practice with yourself, and you can still say those things out loud. I mean, the idea is also diffusing from it. So by kind of having somebody saying the things, you can detach yourself a little bit from where when you hear stuff in your head, it is you. So you kind of feel like this is me, but you can, when you do it in a role play situation, you can kind of detach a little bit from it and be like, oh, it's just stuff. It's not, it doesn't have to be me. But you can also do it with yourself. You know, you can say stuff out loud. You could write stuff on a board and carry it around in your pocket and see that you can still go about your business and have this stuff. Does that make sense? There's various different exercises you can do to try and detach yourself a little bit from those thoughts and make room for those feelings.
Okay. I want to take a break, and I do want to come back and talk about this week-long training that you guys did here. I keep saying that we're going to do that, so I really want to do that. All right, we're going to take a short break and come back more with Evelyn Gould after these messages.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change,
one little minor change to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the healthcare plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the healthcare benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then take this together, and then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA, the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're thrilled right now because we have BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst Evelyn Gould with us. We're doing Making Room with Evelyn, talking about ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy. Now, this is a very specific technique that is, I think, very beneficial. It was not invented for autism parents, but it's very beneficial for autism parents because it helps with a lot of the things that we go through. Now, you were instrumental in having Dr. Lisa Coyne and her team come here a couple of weeks ago and do a training. Tell us what the training was, how many days it was, who was involved in the training, and what the big idea was.
Okay, so it was a week-long training for some of the top-level people at CARD. So from different departments, we had, our clinical director, and we had our training director, and we had our family services director, and we had like a bunch of different, Jonathan was there, so the director of research, and they were basically just introducing everybody to ACT and what the main processes are, what the main techniques are, and walked everyone through in a very personal way. So they were having us all use techniques on ourselves with our own stuff, identifying our own values and what we wanted, and then we brainstormed a lot about like what it would mean for other people in CARD to have access to this intervention,
right?
And this toolkit basically of things that you can do to help develop flexibility in how you think, and your psychological flexibility.
And I would think this would be great for any business to do, to have this kind of training. And thrilled that level of people got that training. But was the big idea for them to get the training so that they could do their jobs better for themselves, or was it trickle down?
Both.
Okay,
so I think
like that answer.
The hope is that everyone at that training will start applying it to their own life, and then to how they interact with staff, other people in the workplace, and then you'll have like a trickle-down effect, even an indirect effect, because if I start behaving differently towards people around me, that's going to have an effect on how they behave.
Right.
And then to take away the training and the knowledge and think about how can we apply this at CARD, how could we, like, what would this mean for therapists in the home? What would this mean for parents? What would this mean for our higher level clinicians? What would this mean for our schedulers who are on the phone all day with unhappy people?
Right.
What would this mean for our kids, that we work with? So it enabled that conversation, and this is not like it's not like a intervention that you just slap on one thing. This is like a bunch of techniques. It's like using reinforcement. Anybody can use reinforcement with anyone else.
Right.
It's not just something that you use with a kid with autism. This is something that it's a process that's going on all the time. So it's the same with ACT. It's a bunch of techniques that anybody can use to create a valued, better life for themselves, essentially, or to a better life experience for themselves.
Right.
So we want to, my idea is that we could essentially have a whole culture change. Like, we could help everybody, because it doesn't matter what your job is, you always have difficult interpersonal situations that show up that are very stressful. So whether you're dealing with someone else, like you could be dealing with someone else who's very upset, whether that's a supervisor dealing with a parent who's very upset, whether it's me dealing with another staff member who's upset about something. And it's really about giving people the tools to be able to not bring their stuff to difficult situations and make it worse. It's be able to behave effectively in those moments when it really matters.
Absolutely.
And that means that everyone is trying to move towards the same goal.
And I want to go back to the idea that it also trickles down to the parents with it, to have a child with autism, because we just, in the A Word, we were just watching, well, I got a chance to see it. Evelyn couldn't hear it. But there's a moment when the therapist says to the dad, because he says, this is very frustrating, this is very upsetting, this is, really, really difficult. And the therapist, who's a great therapist, Jessica's really wonderful, and she says, well, you're going to have to see if you can make the consequences more, the same. The consequences have to be the same across the board. And she kind of looks at him, and you see that there is empathy there, that she cares, and he's looking at her like, are you kidding me? Like, that's what you have for me, right? Like, how am I supposed to do that? And there's this moment there where, I would love for her to have more tools to be able to say and to feel comfortable taking his perspective and saying out loud to him. And you almost see it in Jessica. Jessica was one of our therapists, very, very sweet. And she was actually our therapist at a very difficult time where we were having the home that we rented was being foreclosed on. We were having to move in a very quick period of time, and most stressful, right? And Jessica was coming in very kind and considerate and whatever, but you can see in that moment that she wishes she had more tools.
And she has her own, like what, I need him to do this, what if he can't do it, what if I'm not doing it, what if what if I'm not supporting them enough, whatever she's thinking, I don't know, because I can't read her mind. But I'm thinking that if you're seeing an emotional reaction in somebody, something is going on for them. And she does obviously is feeling that empathy, and ACT is all about helping everybody be more effective in the moments that are really stressful.
And so is there a plan now for the therapist to get the training? That's being worked on.
Yes, I think that would be really far down the line. We only just had the training at the top level, so we have to figure out what the best way is for us to help everyone develop different skills and deal with stress. And I think it's, like you said, it's a trickle down as well.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, am really excited. There was a really interesting energy in the building that week. We missed all of you because most of our regulars we didn't have because they were at the training. But it was a really interesting energy, and everybody seemed to be very excited. And I love the idea of it. And of course, as a parent, I just want to offer myself up. If if there are people that need to be trained, I'm wanting to. I'm on the list. I love that. I thank you so much for coming here on a weekly basis and making it okay for us to be on the page that we're on. And we're all on different pages, but I get emotional about it because it's a wonderful gift to get that on a weekly basis, to be told it's where you are is where you're supposed to be, and it's all going to be okay. And it gives me the opportunity to make room, to step back and look and see all the things that are going on instead of just the couple of things.
Self-compassion is really important, that we can start trying to do that for ourselves, and ACT is really good about that too, and teaching that ability to be kinder to ourselves and make room for this stuff and acknowledge that we're suffering and that it's hard.
Well, you just open a whole other can of worms, because that's calling it self-compassion. We're gearing up and have started our Compassion in Action campaign, and we're asking everybody to do something kind, and to do something kind for someone else, because we're saying we teach people how to treat us, but it has to start at home, right? We have to have self-compassion. I was saying on the show the other day, was talking about how we shouldn't judge each other, and that I was saying to somebody, I don't have time to judge you, I'm so busy judging myself. I have no no time left to judge you. I'm completely busy.
Excuse me, I'm just trying to judge myself for every single thing I ever did in my life that's wrong and probably will do.
Right.
Now.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm occupied. I can't return your text. I'm judging myself. But so we can start with compassion there, self-compassion, being kind to ourselves first, cutting ourselves a break. Really, really important, especially when we've got other stuff going on, whether that's autism or something else. But really, honestly, people always have something going on, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
the thing.
And it doesn't, even people who seemingly have everything can be suffering.
And often that's the big shocker, right? Whatever happens, and they disclose, and you go, "Wow, I can't believe that person wasn't
And the reason
happy."
being, like what we were talking about earlier, is that the reality, we don't just react to what's happening right now and the direct things that are happening to us in the moment. We are reacting to all sorts of other stuff that's in our minds. So people can seemingly, on the outside, everything can be fine, but that doesn't mean that they're not suffering, because they have this ability to create stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
that does make sense. A lot to process, a lot to think about. But very excited to have you here to talk about and start us thinking about self-compassion and practicing for our IEPs. We practice fire drills. We should practice our IEPs, and having all those thoughts and emotions
and it's
bombard
really
us.
important to practice, like physically practice and physically act things out, because you can talk about them and think them through in your mind, but it's just not the same thing.
Right.
Your mind is not the same thing as
we would never do a fire drill on paper.
Yes.
We always make our children walk through them. So, and that's just good for life, life skill. Whatever you have coming up, if it's emotional, to practice it. I used to be, when you were teaching somebody how to drive, they always had the simulators first before you put people in the cars. And I think because of economy, we don't have those anymore. But always a good plan to simulate first and then move to the real deal, especially when it matters. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. So excited to have you back with us. All right, we're going to take a break and come back and finish out the show. Stick with us. Monica Holloway is a critically acclaimed author, speaker, and activist. She is also an autism mom. Her son Wills was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Now, at the age of 15, Wills is a high school freshman, attending a mainstream school.
I'm in a brand new school. I'm in a great school that I love, and I'm really happy there. I made friends pretty quickly on the first day, and something interesting happened to me on the first day.
Tell me.
We were doing an art project with fabric markers, and there was a little label on it that said "squeeze for best results."
Okay.
And so I squeezed it and it exploded all over the people at my table.
Oh no!
And we were all covered in little blue dots.
I asked Wills how he describes autism to people.
I say that I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a slight form of autism. It doesn't make you any different. It really doesn't. It's just there, and it just kind of makes you who you are.
I asked Wills what he thought of the Sandy Hook shooter's actions being linked to autism.
Please, just don't be scared of autism. If somebody has autism, don't be scared of them. Chances are they're not violent. They're just like you or me.
Monica is a proud mom with good cause. I asked her to describe Wills in 5 words.
Generous, curious, funny, sensitive, loving.
We had a chance to talk about the Sandy Hook massacre and how Monica heard the news.
On Friday, when the shooting happened in Connecticut, I was in my car, and my husband Michael called to tell me what had happened. And I was in a state of shock, as I think we all were, with that many children. And I felt, I guess a mind can't take in that kind of information without feeling nauseous. I felt it go from here all the way down my body. I started calling everybody I knew to tell them I loved them, and I was thinking about them, and I just wanted to be with the people that I knew. I started hearing more and more information come on the news about this shooter having Asperger's or being autistic. And then I started hearing things about, well, does autism cause violence? And I was in a whole other level of shock. Never in a million years would I think that somebody might associate us and my son's face with the face of violence just because he has Asperger's. And I've seen bad days and good days, and that's what kills me is like there was not a day bad enough to ever make me think that he or any of his friends could ever be violent. The only thing that made me even feel a little bit better to do something to help educate. And so we've started a campaign on my Facebook page, Cowboy and Wills. It's called I Am the Face of Autism. And please post a picture of yourself. It can be your child, your friend with autism. Let's put these beautiful faces of these people with autism on to wipe out the face of this murderer. Let's put our faces in front of his.
Welcome back. I kept Evelyn Gould with us because we had a question come in, so I made her stay. The question is, hi, Shannon and Evelyn. My question today is how to best deal with a situation of my son's aide using the iPad at school to give negative reinforcements. Like, do more work now, stay seated, don't call out please, hands to self, roaring not okay, saying I'm frustrated about work, raise hand, don't call out, don't say, I can't say I can. Those are examples from today. Oh boy, what's a mom to do?
So it sounds like what the teacher's doing is listing all the things the kid should not do.
Right.
Rather than teaching the kid what he should do.
I am frequently guilty of this as a parent, that I will phrase things and say, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that.
And that's human. That's being human, and we tend to focus on the negative. But what we know about that is then that your kid will not know what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And you're probably likely, it's quite punishing, so you're going to get children who are resentful or feel you get the emotional response to just being constantly told no, you don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's like stressful.
Yes, it is. We're going to keep talking. Emily's going to cycle through some of the ways you can get in touch with us before next show, but we're going to keep talking.
So, I mean, essentially what we want to do is work with the aide to understand that what we really want to do is phrase everything in the positive. So rather than just saying, don't shout out, what do you want him to do?
Right.
And then listing what you want him to do and reinforcing every time he does that. So trying to get the aide to focus on the positive and look for the positive.
Right. So we can start by doing that by saying to the aide, I would like it if you would put everything in the positive, not in the negative. Tell him exactly which behavior you want him to do, and then make sure you reinforce him when he does that. If the aide does not do that, then I would call for an IEP meeting, get it in writing immediately, and say I want an IEP meeting, and get it written into the IEP that directions be given in positives, not in negatives. And if you need some studies, we can probably come up with some studies to help you with that. But start by very nicely asking and saying, here's what we would prefer, here's what we have found to be effective with our child.
Yeah. And just that, if you're telling somebody all the things you don't want them to do, you're just putting in their mind all the things that you don't want them to do. You're not like helping them know all the things you want them to do.
Right. And here's the thing, when you're talking to the aide, make sure that you set the example by saying, here's what I'd like for you to do.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, don't put negatives, say, here's what I would like. I would like for you to put all positives. Can we do that?
Yes.
Instead of saying, don't write don't.
Yeah.
How many negatives can we get there? All right, we're out of time, but thank you so much for writing that in. Thank you for sticking around to answer that. We're going to be back tomorrow with Ask Dr. Doreen, first thing in the morning, and Julie Matthews of Nourishing Hope will be with us in the second half of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. So back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.